Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another nice webinar we are presenting from the Women of SCORE. This webinar is being recorded, so it can be emailed to you if you miss any portion. And in the chat box below, you may type in your questions that will be gone through at the end of the session. So today is my pleasure to introduce Jania Bailey. She is the CEO of FranNet, and she's going to be telling us about her lessons learned. And as you can see, she has a very lengthy profile there and is also a very successful author of Thriving the Journey to Success in the Business World. So Jania, thank you for joining us. And hopefully Kentucky is nice this weekend for the Kentucky Derby.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. And today's presentation is going to really be more of a conversation, and you all just getting to know me and me kind of sharing my background and some of the bumps in the road along the way and things I might have done different. And at the end, I'm open to questions and answers. And this session actually came about as a result of an article that Peter had found, Peter Fong with SCORE saw, and asked that I do a presentation for you all around that. So I don't know that my story will be that different than others you may have heard or might hear along the way, but hopefully there'll be a nugget or two for each of you. So I guess the first thing I'd like to talk about is, some of those things I wished I had known. And as I put here, I'll tell you my background. I'm from a small town in Western Kentucky called Paducah, Kentucky. Started out as a banker. I was all of 19 years old when I went to work for that bank as an installment loan secretary. I worked my way through the bank. I was there 10 and a half years. When I left, I was a vice president and regional commercial lender. I left there because I was recruited by a larger bank in Louisville, Kentucky. It was Liberty. It became PNC Bank. It was a part of the PNC family when I was there. So quite a history through the banking industry. And as I work with younger people today, and especially younger women, and I see myself sometimes, and you just have to smile. I remember my bank president in Paducah sat me down one day and said, Jania, the hardest thing for you when you go into management is going to be expecting other people to be you, to have your work ethic, to have your work style, your commitment, your focus, your drive. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, why is that? Why am I unusual? And he goes, you are unique in that you're so driven. And I was always raising my hands for more. What else can I learn? I want to do this. And that's why I was able to move from a secretary to a lending position. And he's right. And even to this day, these many, many years later, I still find myself having to call myself up short and go, they're not you. And I can't expect them to have the same drive or the same motivation. Some people are in it for a job, and other people are in it for a career. For me, the job career was an extension of who I was, and it became a big part of my personality. It was my confidence. I had grown up in a kind of rough home situation. I'd been a good student. I was very smart, but I didn't have a lot of self-esteem. And I found my self-esteem and my confidence and my feel good at work. So I was probably motivated differently than a lot of people. So look at yourselves and look at the people you work with and realize you are each bringing different things into the workplace. You each have different buttons and drivers. And it's really easy to get frustrated at people who don't work as hard as you do, or don't, not willing to put in the hours. One of my pet peeves, it's 5 o'clock, phones go off, they're gone. Don't look for them ahead of 8:30. Those are things, though, that we have to accept. So not expecting people to be me, that was a big lesson, and it's one I still have to remind myself of from time to time. As we look at, as you can imagine, coming from a secretarial position and then going into management, there was a lot of things I had to learn. But the most difficult for me to develop, and some I still struggle with, patience. My husband tells me to this day, I have no patience. And that's been an asset on the personal work side. It's a disadvantage when you're working with people and leadership. Again, being willing to let them grow and develop in their own time, and to coach, but not force feed. That for me is something I still, I was talking to someone this morning, it's something I get frustrated at myself and have to remind myself of. The second biggest challenge for me all these years, and things I have to constantly go back to, is my willingness to face conflict. I will do it, but I don't like it. I am more willing than I was many years ago, because I've learned that to put off those tough conversations makes it worse. I think of it like, a sore on your arm. If you don't doctor it and take care of it, it can fester, and it gets much, much more complicated than it needed to be if we'd have just taken care of it in the front end. But I don't know many people that look forward to tough conversations. And it can be, having to let someone go, or it can be getting them on a performance improvement plan. I would much rather everybody just do the right thing, and let's, rock along here and not have to deal with all this uncomfortable stuff. So as you're looking at your development, think about those things and watch out for those things, because sometimes those items can be big stumbling blocks if we allow them to. So I have to constantly work on these two. Best advice I was ever given: same bank president back in Paducah. And I got to tell you, that little country bank president was amazing manager, and he was an amazing mentor to me. But he set me down one day because I was all upset about a mistake I'd made, and I was frustrated. I had a whole lot on my plate, and I was always taking on more. And he set me down and said, you got to give yourself permission to be human. You're going to make mistakes. There isn't anyone that doesn't make mistakes. And when you do, look at the lesson you can learn from the mistake and don't repeat it. But don't beat yourself up. And a big part of that also was learning to say no. I shared this. It's really funny how these things keep coming up over and over with one of my team members the other day, because she was telling me she was putting in some pretty crazy hours. And I looked at her and I said, why are you doing that? And she started naming off all these things she's working on. And I said, why haven't you let somebody know that your workload had gotten to this point? And she just kind of blinked her eyes at me. And I shared what my bank president had told me. One day I went in his office almost in tears and was like, I'm at the breaking point. I can't take on anything else. And he smiled and he said, I wondered when you were going to tell me that. And of course I looked at him like, what? And he said, as long as you were smiling and saying, yes, I'll get it done, we figured you still had capacity for more. If you don't let somebody know that you're at break point, they're just going to keep layering it on. We've all heard the saying, we give projects to busy people because they get stuff done. And that's great up to a point, but don't allow it to be a breaking point for you. And don't allow yourself to get pulled into so many things that you do start making more mistakes and you're dropping balls. I'm really bad about saying yes to outside commitments. I'm very involved in the International Franchise Association, FranNet, that I work for now. We're in the franchise association and, or franchise industry. And it's very easy for me to say yes to the IFA when they call and need something. I'm chair of the membership committee right now. I served on the board for 6 years, the International Franchise Association Board of Directors. And I just seem to always have more on my plate. Had to learn. There were times I had to say no. And it's okay to say no. It's okay to say not this time. I'll be happy to help in the future, but I don't have the capacity right now. And for the ladies on here, I think we especially are such people pleasers as a rule. That's hard for us. And we feel like we're letting people down if we say no. I know you can get involved in your church activities if you've still got children at home with your kids. You know, I look back at my life and all the times I spread myself so thin. You take the joy out of the process when you do that. So make sure you've left room in your life for the joy. Make sure you give yourself the grace and acceptance to be human and make mistakes and learn from them. So these are some of the things along the way that I wished I could have gotten in my head a little sooner, even though my bank president tried to help me with them. So some of the advice I wished I'd have listened to earlier, and some of the things I preach, they tell me at work, is finding that work-life balance. I was a single mom with 2 boys for most of the years my sons were growing up, and work was a necessity. It wasn't, you know, I wasn't working so hard to get ahead just to feed my ego. I was doing it to feed my boys. And I was driven by that to make their life better. What I didn't understand back then was how fast those years would go by and how much I might look back and see I missed. So finding that balance, I do feel like the generation that's come behind mine has done a better job of this than we did. A lot of the baby boomers, there was so much competition in the workplace that to get ahead, you had to put in crazy hours and you had to always be available. I think now, I know my son, my youngest son, his last job interview, he actually started out with, I will give you 100% on the job, but my family will always come first. And, you know, he'll lay out, I will not miss an activity at school for one of my boys. And on weekends, I'm coaching. So I think that's healthy. And that's something I wished I had learned earlier. I do a really adequate job of it now. I won't say great job, but I think I'm a lot better at it than I used to be, because I do realize time is precious, and I will try to find that balance and unplug to make sure I spend time with my husband, and that on the weekends I get away and go see the grandkids or my mom. So working to find that sooner. The other is kind of hand in hand, not ignoring or making it be second fiddle, that personal side of our lives. Don't sacrifice your family and that quality time for your career. I think we have to work at that balancing act constantly. Things I've learned is I have to schedule. If I let my calendar dictate when I'll have personal time, I'll never have personal time. I have to block it out. I have to say, I'm going to take off this Friday so I have a long weekend with my family, and, you know, go see my kids in Indianapolis, or I'm going to go see my family in Huntsville. So I have to plan it. It has to be a priority. Otherwise, I'll wake up on Friday afternoon, I'll be exhausted and I'm too tired to go anywhere and see anybody. So make that priority. A great book for those of you that like to read, maybe all of you've already read it, but First Things First by Stephen Covey. And he talks about, you know, the quadrants of how we spend our time. And I'm a big believer that urgent, or not urgent, but important, is family time, until we ignore it long enough that it becomes crisis mode. And then it's in the urgent and important. So we don't want to wait till our family life is in crisis before we make it a priority. So make sure you're scheduling that time for yourself. As I'm coaching and mentoring young women and some young men today in the franchise industry, and we talk about the things that are really necessary to be successful today, and how is it different? I think resiliency is top of the list for me. And I see a lack of that sometimes in the younger generation, not all, so don't anybody get their feathers up at me, but I think this is something you've got to be willing to roll with it a little bit. There's going to be bumps, and there's going to be changes, and there's going to be things going on. We recently have gone through a couple of pretty massive changes in our company, and not everybody handles change well. It's necessary. And especially if you're going to be a leader and grow in an organization, to not be able to change, to become so set in your ways and so aggravated when changes come that you're like fighting against it, is going to kill your career. And if you're running a company, that's a death kiss on the company, your inability to change and to be resilient to the hits that come. Take COVID. None of us could have predicted the COVID pandemic. There's no way. Of course, now my grandson tells me, Grandma, it happens every 100 years. You should have known it was coming. And God love him, he's right. But no, we did not have that in our long range strategy planning. But we have to be resilient. We had to make changes quickly. We had to be willing to roll with it until we saw, because there was no clear picture of when it's going to end. There's still not. We're still seeing ups and downs as a result. And just about the time we think COVID's lining out a little bit and becoming manageable, then we have, inflation hitting us and a war hitting us. And, it's just, this is life and this is business. Good business leaders are resilient to these things happening, and they can flex and change and pivot as they need to. I've always said, as a banker, I used to look at a multitude of companies in any given year. And, you'd see these companies that just had outstanding results year after year after year after year, until a bump came in the economy or a rough patch in the leadership team. And then it's like they fell apart. Anybody can lead a company in good times. That's easy. When the economy's great and all the things are running in your favor, you have to work to mess it up. Good leadership, outstanding leadership can lead through tough times and bring the company out on the other side. That's when you really see the quality of leadership, when there's tough times in the economy and in the particular industry and in the environment around an organization. So work on your resilience. Strategic thinking. There's short-term and long-term. And I've always been a believer we have to do both. But if we ignore that longer-term picture, now, when I was in banking, we asked for 3 to 5 year projections, and a lot of banks may still. The reality is today, from someone sitting in a seat running a company, 5 years is fairy tale right now. There's no way I can predict 5 years out. I'm doing good to predict this year with all of the different things going on, but I need a strategic plan that encompasses where we would like to be in 3 years and 5 years. So that strategic thinking is, if I could forecast and say, here's where I want us to be, what are the steps then to get there? But if I don't have that vision for the future, I'll be on the treadmill just doing the same things and not laying the groundwork for the future of the organization. So strategy and having strategic thinkers around you are important. And that's a side of my brain I have to work with, because I'm a task oriented. I get real caught up in getting it done now. And I have to step back and think about, okay, now, but what are the things I need us to be doing to get us here in the future, not just through next week, next month, next quarter. Leading by example. I believe I should be the first one in and the last one out. Back when we were in the office, of course, now it's the virtual world. And so I'm just, I feel like I'm on all the time if I don't catch myself. But we lead by example, not only in our work ethic and the hours that we're willing to put in, but our customer service attitude and our team attitude and our inclusion in the type of organization we build. We set the compass for the organization and everybody's watching us. I learned a long time ago, again, back to office days more than virtual days, but I would walk in and I had to be very careful that I didn't let anything show on my face in terms of maybe I had something going on at home that I wouldn't, I was worried about my mom or something going on with one of my kids. If they saw me look upset, they immediately think it's about them and about something at the company. So we don't realize as leaders how much our people are watching us and how much they're looking at us. We determine whether they're going to have a good day or a bad day, and we don't even realize that sometimes. So be aware and lead by example. Stay positive and focused and upbeat. Empathy, being able to manage with a heart. I've often said I love the fact that I can kind of set those tones right now within our organization. As a single mom with 2 kids, I can tell you, I remember if one of my boys was sick, my heart just, pounding, because was it going to be too much time off? I've already missed. And one of my children had chronic illnesses. He had asthma and allergies that were just really, really debilitating. And I remember worrying if I would lose my job. So one thing coming from that, when I'm dealing with my employees, I tell everybody, your kids, your family comes first. You've got a sick kid, you stay home. You've got an event at school your child's going to perform in or be a part of. You need to be there. Lead with your heart. It's okay. And be understanding. Now, the flip side of that is be sure you don't get taken advantage of, because some people, unfortunately, will ride it way too far and will push it too far. But I would rather err on being too easy in those areas than not empathetic enough. So find your balance, but lead with empathy. Do not take yourself too seriously. As I tell people, don't believe your own press. One of the things that, and I think I say that later on, but one of the things when you get into leadership positions is it's real easy to get an inflated attitude about yourself. And the minute you do, you might as well resign. You're done, because you've lost all respect of everybody that knows you. Nobody wants to be around a puffed up individual. The person that got to this seat needs to be the same person that sits in this seat. All of those lessons along the way came with me. The person I am today is the result of that road I had to travel to get here. So we need to never forget those things. And at times, laugh at yourself. You're human. Laugh at yourself at some of the silly mistakes you're going to make, or some of the, I laugh at myself now about can't remember somebody's name or forgot something that was right on the tip of my tongue. So these are the things. It's okay. It's okay not to take yourself so serious. And then, as I said earlier, allow yourself to be human. I can't stress that enough, because we're so hard on ourselves sometimes. And I think I lived for years with the imposter syndrome. It was like, if anybody ever figured out I didn't really know what I was doing, I was going to be in trouble. Well, here I am, however many years later, and I guess I'm okay. I did okay. But I was so afraid of not being enough, of not being smart enough, educated enough, experienced enough. And, I'll be honest with you, I've accepted positions I really didn't feel qualified for, and just determined I would make myself be the best in that position possible. In doing that, I've realized I wasn't the only one that felt that way. And I wasn't the only one that was figuring it out as I sat in those seats. So it's okay. It's okay to be human. So these are some of my do's and don'ts, and some of them I've already talked about, but staying humble, staying approachable, those are kind of, go hand in hand, I think, with not forgetting where you came from and not taking yourself too seriously. Surrounding yourself with people that are very different from you. And we have a profile that we take at FranNet that we use with our clients. And so we take it internally. And one of the characteristics is toward and away. And I'll explain that. A toward person, the grass is always greener. They're very future focused. They're all gung-ho for change because it's going to be better. They're excited. An away person is like, nope, let's leave everything alone. You're going to mess something up. And the away person tends to see all of the things that could go wrong. Where I'm a toward person, I just see all the things that can get better. I need away people around me too, because they keep me from making mistakes, because they're the ones that say, well, have you thought about this? And have you thought about that? Because as a toward person, I ignore all that stuff. I'm just looking at all the, green grass and opportunity. So be sure you don't fall into that trap of hiring people around you that are like you and are always going to say, yeah, that's great. That's great. We need people around us that will challenge us and that think the other way, so they can offset and help balance us out. Address issues quickly. We talked about that, whether it's personnel or any type of issue. Don't let it set. The longer it sets, the bigger it gets. Protect your team from the outside. And what I mean there is, I'm gonna protect my team from upset franchisees. I'm gonna protect them from upset board members. I'm gonna be the buffer between them and everything difficult as much as I can. Now, I can't always, but I am always gonna step in a difficult position and take over that, because my people don't deserve to be yelled at. My people don't deserve to be in any way talked down to, and I will not allow that. We have to be the cheerleader and the protector of the people that work with us and for us. Always give your team credit for any success. I take the blame and responsibility for anything that doesn't go right. I'm going to make sure I point to the people who got the work done and give credit where credit's due for all the things that do go right. Don't let your team be the fall guy. So I've already covered that. And don't forget where you came from. So those all kind of start running together, but they're worth repeating. So risk taking. Here's a good one. And it's one I've actually, as again, living with right now because we've made some changes. This is the hardest thing for people, I think, new to management or have not been in management, and even middle management people sometimes, is they want all the answers before anything is implemented or a decision is made. As a banker, I learned, when a loan would be on my desk, you'll never have all the answers. You make a decision based on the best information you have available to you at the time. And whether that's who to hire, or a change in CRM system, or a change in an operating platform, or a direction the company's going. You do all the research you can and the due diligence, but at the end of the day, you've got to make decisions, because no decision is a decision. And sometimes that's the absolute worst decision. And that's the one that causes companies to get into a lot of problems. Think Blockbuster, not making a decision to change their business model, put them out of business. So be willing to take risk. You'll not have all the answers. And the last one on there, I've got it should be very few decisions are life or death. And I tell my people all the time, we're not brain surgeons. If we do something or we start something and it doesn't work out, we can probably back up and adjust or even kill that idea and go forward. Nobody's going to die as a result of a bad decision we make. And we're not going to let a bad decision go so long that it runs the company in the ground. That's just not going to happen. So make decisions, take risk, make sure they're calculated risk. How do you build allies? In any industry you're in, you need allies. You need people, you need mentors. You need, I call it my unofficial board of directors, people I can go to that are trusted advisors that I can check in with. So you want to build these allies. And the best way to do that, and I have people reach out, it comes with age and being around so long. I have people reach out that want me to mentor them now, or, want me to work with them in some way. And things I look for, are they genuine? I want them to be their self. And I want them to be a sponge and willing to learn. So not being a phony or a put on or trying to impress me with who they are or what they've already done. Just be their self, be humble, and admit where you need help. Work hard and network with successful people. One of the things that I've learned is I want to be around people that are a lot smarter than me, because I learn from them. If I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in trouble because I'm not going to learn anything else. So I want to always be looking for people that are steps ahead of me, steps before me in situations, people that have been there, done that. And I want to learn from them, because through them, I become a better leader and a better person. And that's what you should look for in your industry. And when you reach out to ask somebody to be a mentor or to help you in some way, don't be too pushy. I've had people approach me that it's almost, it's like overwhelming. Every time I'm at a conference, they're right there in my face, or, they're tracking me down. I feel like I'm being hounded. And that's a little intimidating. It's a little creepy, really. So just be sure you do it in a gracious way, and asking if they have time. You would appreciate, being able to connect with them. You will find most successful people in your industry are going to be very open because they've all had to go through, the ranks and the steps to get to where they are, and they remember that, and they're willing to help people along the way. So how to balance patience and perseverance? Well, this is, again, for me, one of those things. I'm probably better at the perseverance than I am at the patience. Work hard and don't let the day-to-day frustrations get in your way. And that, for me, I have to take, unplug sometimes and go walk around the house. And you may hear my dog barking in the background, take him for a walk. So I have to unplug from the frustrations and keep my eyes set on the bigger picture and keep moving forward. And that's where the perseverance and the balance of that day-to-day have to come in. You can't lose sight of the goal. And I'm a big believer in goals. I remember reading a book back when I was still a secretary about, start thinking about the next position you want. What are the things you need to do now to get ready for that next position? And I think one of the books I read was Dress for Success, and it was dress now like you've got the job you want. So I started immediately looking. Well, unfortunately, there wasn't any women loan officers, so I had to look outside my hometown to try to find women loan officers that I could try to mirror my behaviors and the way I dressed and presented myself. But it's have goals. So the way I've always set goals is, here's the goal, here's the next goal. And as soon as I've almost hit this level goal, I'm already focused and zeroed in on the steps for the next goal. So personally, I'm a big goal setter. I've used them in business for all of these years, and I use them in my personal life. Just recently hit one of my milestones. We just bought a home in Florida, and that's going to be our winter home, and someday, eventually, long-term out, a retirement home. But I've always wanted that second home in Florida. So that was on my goal list, and I was pretty proud when I could check that. And you see, the bottom thing I have down there is celebrate the small wins. If we set these big, lofty goals and we don't celebrate the steps and the plateaus that we hit, we could lose focus, we could lose energy, and not be as willing to keep trudging towards. So celebrate the baby steps and then celebrate big when you hit a milestone. Education and experience. People ask me about this all the time. How much education is necessary? Well, I've got to tell you, it's a lot more required today. When I went to work at the bank, I did not have a college degree. I was, started as a secretary. I was right out of high school. I did go to college at night and on the weekends through most of my career. And I've always taken classes that were specific to the jobs I had. So I'm sad to say I've never quite tied it all up with a bow with a degree, but I could do that through those time frames. I don't think that's as easy to do today as it was back then. People saw I was learning and growing, and I kept going to school, and I was taking whatever course applied to the job. I took accounting courses, I took financial analysis courses, I took real estate courses, anything that applied to something to do with lending. I went to lending specific schools. So education is essential. And its shape and form may be different, but education and that commitment to lifelong learning is essential. When I'm looking at hiring someone, yes, I look at their education, but I've got to tell you the experience is invaluable as well. And I was fortunate enough when PNC looked at my resume and saw this girl from Paducah, Kentucky. They saw 10 and a half years experience, even though I didn't have the formal degree. They saw the benchmarks and what I had done in the industry and the involvement. I'd already jumped into banking organizations and was getting myself acquainted in the industry. So experience is important, and that just takes time, and it takes keep raising your hand. And I've said, learn everything you can about your industry. Whatever your industry is. And when I was in banking, I got involved in Robert Morris Associates, RMA, and that was the trade association for bankers. I wanted to be a part. I wanted to learn. I wanted to network. I read everything I could get my hands on. And cross training within your organization is great. You know, I started out as a secretary, but then there was an opportunity to cross train in the operations side of the commercial lending department. I raised my hand. There was an opportunity to work in one of the branches as a teller. I've never been a teller, and some people said that was a step down, but I felt like it was important for me to know the whole bank and everything. I've opened accounts. By the time I left banking, I had done every job pretty much in that small bank in Paducah, except for the trust department. So when I got to Louisville, to the bigger bank, I had a pretty darn good idea of how things worked within the bank and how the different departments interacted and the roles that each of them play. And I had a real respect for each of those roles. So the more of those opportunities you can take advantage of and ask for, because that's valuable to your organization when you can be a backup in other areas. Attitudes and mindset. You know, I hire for attitude. I can train what they need to know about franchising in our specifics, but I can't train attitude. And I want people to have that can-do attitude. Whatever it takes, I'll get it done. A servant attitude, that's what I look for. I will not tolerate the "it's not my job" person. And if I hear any hint of that in an interview, they're done. I also don't like complainers and prima donnas, you know, those people that nothing's ever enough, and no matter what you do, it's taken for granted. That entitlement. I'm a big giver. So, you know, it might be a half a day Friday that we were doing every other Friday. They rotated and could have a half a day Friday. I did that until I saw it was no longer considered a treat or something special, that it was taken for granted. And I stopped it and we did something else, because the minute it becomes an entitlement, it's not valuable anymore. So watch for that, and watch for it in yourself. Be sure you don't develop that. So I also, this last one I put down here, this was always my motto. I was going to work hard enough and show them that I was willing to do whatever it took to get the job done, and they had to promote me. I may not have had the most tenure or the most education, but I worked hard. I did great work. The customers loved me. How could they not promote me? That was always my attitude. And not that I was entitled, but I was just going to make it hard for them to say no to me. And that's always been what I've tried to do, is just keep working harder and doing more and being out there. Oh, some of the less than happy stuff. Things don't always work out the way you want them to. And, you know, these can be your forks in the road. They can be your detours. They can be your, you know, side steps, whatever you want to call them. But remember, I came to Louisville. I worked for PNC and was very happy there for 6.5, almost 7 years. And a new bank came to town, and they recruited and they recruited and they recruited, and they threw money and they threw stock. And I mean, it got to the point I couldn't say no. I mean, you know, again, still being a single mom and the opportunities and needing to do what was best for me and my family. And I said yes. It was the worst mistake of my career, because that bank was toxic and their environment was just, the bank president would come to my office and lean up on my door and say, "You covered your overhead today?" Well, that went over like a lead balloon with me. But that was his management style. And I brought in the biggest account the bank had had since they came to town. And he said, "Good job on that, but I guess the rest of your pipeline dried up while you was working on that one." I couldn't survive in that environment. And I had signed a non-compete. That was part of the big package I got. I had to sign a 1-year non-compete. I left there without a job. I literally quit on a Friday. Can't believe it as I look back now, but I was at break point. I left there not knowing what I was going to do. And I spent most of the weekend crying, saying, "I'm just a banker. I'm just a banker. I don't know what else I can do." And I couldn't, you know, of course, later PNC told me they would have fought the non-compete if I'd have come back and given them, you know, told them I wanted to come back. But that fork in the road, that detour, caused me to get out of banking. I sat down with a legal pad and what were the other things that I wanted to do and what did I enjoy. And I had learned I enjoyed doing training and public speaking. I've done that through the Robert Morris Associates, that trade association. So I actually went about finding out what I needed to do. And I wrote to several training companies and had to do a video and send it in. And long story short, I wound up covering 8 different topics for like Skill Path Seminars. You may know that does the stuff all over the country. You get the flyers. And through that, I became introduced to franchising. One of my clients that I was doing training for on a local basis was Fantastic Sam's, and it was a regional owner that owned 5 regions. And after a year and a half of working with them, I was offered the opportunity to be a regional, to run his regions. He had 5 states, and I stepped into that, which led to me working for Fantastic Sam's Corporate, which led to FranNet coming to my door. So the worst decision of my career turned out to be the best one, because had that not happened, I probably would have never left banking, and I would have missed the amazing opportunity I've had for the last, well, I've been with FranNet 16, I was with them 8, so 25 years. So it's been quite the ride. So some things that I'll share with you, be careful and don't let disappointments make you bitter. I've seen, we can learn and we can get better, or we can get bitter. And I've had employees let me down and really hurt my heart. People that I felt like I invested a lot of time and energy and gave a ton of opportunity to, and then you feel stabbed in the back. And it'd be really easy to say, I'm never going to do that again. Nobody's ever going to get that close to me again. Don't do that, because there's 10 more behind the one that was the bad apple. There's 10 right behind them that deserve the chance that we can give them. So, cry your tears, kick your wall, do whatever you need to do, get over it, move on. And the people that hurt us along the way, that's about them, not us. Don't change who you are. Don't quit giving, and don't quit leading others and leading them to opportunity. Which really ties into giving back to the next generation. We all need to be mentors to the next generation. Help them learn from some of the bumps in our roads. Share with them our life lessons. My mother used to tell me I was so hard-headed, I had to learn it all the hard way. So maybe everybody's that way, but wouldn't it be great if somebody took 1 or 2 of our hard knocks and it kept them from having to have the same situation? So I believe in mentorship. I believe in sharing. And that's really what today's session is all about. So we've got several minutes left. I do want to open it up for questions. It looks like we've had a few come in, and there's no question that's off the table. I'm as transparent as you might think I seem to be. I have no secrets I wouldn't share. So let me open it up.
Thank you, Jana. Can we go to the next slide, please? That way I can share some resources with the audience today. Oh,
Sure.
There's your contact info. Thank you.
Yes, that's how anybody can feel free to reach me. Again, I'm not hesitant to, you feel free to connect with me on my email, LinkedIn, Twitter, or you can visit our website. And then there's some of our resources.
All right. Well, thank you. That was so inspiring, Jana. Thank you so much for your time today. I just want to share some resources here with our audience. We have mentors available to help you with your business. SCORE is here to help women and all small business owners, not just women. We're very diversity and inclusion organization here. So to request a mentor, that link is there on the bottom. It's score.org/find-mentor. If you would like to join SCORE, you can do so by visiting score.org/volunteer. And on the right side, we have a lot of resources available on our website. And that link is for the Women Entrepreneurs Hub. And there you can find on-demand webinars, library recordings, just a whole bunch of information there. So just take a look at that website. And I also have a couple flyers that I'm going to share here in a bit. On the next slide, I believe we're getting into the Q&A now, right?
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. I do have, I did receive several questions here for you.
Okay.
So let's see, let me read them out. What was the most challenging obstacle for you as a woman in leadership?
Oh, that's easy. Well, we're gonna go back in time a little bit. So you got to remember, yeah, I'm small town in Paducah, Kentucky, in the late 70s, when the bank president asked me if I wanted to be an experiment, and they were going to, try me out as a commercial lender in training. I didn't feel like I had a chance to say no, but I mean, of course, he told me if the experiment didn't work, I couldn't go back to being a secretary because it would be seen as a failure in the bank, and so it was a risk, but I took the risk. But I would show up at meetings back then, and people, I remember going into, it was for 3 local banks meeting on a big project that we were going to, share the loan on, and one of them made the comment they were glad Jana was there to take notes. So it was being taken seriously as a woman at that time. And one of my dear friends that I had come up through the bank with was actually assigned to me as my secretary. Back then, we still had secretaries. And that was awkward and uncomfortable. She made it great because, she told me, she said, I don't want to do what you do. Let me just help you be better. So, but I think just not knowing my place back then and trying to figure out how to, I didn't want to be like the guys. I wanted to be myself. And I've never been I don't know. I'm not a rebel rouser, loud person about it. I just kept working harder, and I knew that was worth something. So I just always tried to keep my head above the commotion. Some of the women used to get angry because they weren't included in Rotary Club, for example. Back then, women didn't go to Rotary Club. Well, it didn't do any good to get angry about it. So I just tried to find other ways that I could network and be a part. So I think you have to just look at the obstacles. Don't get angry. Just figure out how to go over them, under them, around them, or through them.
Excellent. What opportunities are available for women this year and in 2023?
I think the world is our oyster now. I really do. I don't think there's anything we can't do if we set our minds to it. Now, we've seen women break the glass ceiling. We're seeing more women come, more women are in C-level positions than in our history. It's still not, 50-50. It may never be. But what I see too is as women, we make different decisions and we decide, a lot of my friends did not want to put in the time or the sacrifices to go to the level that I've gone. And I have to respect that as their choice. My choice was to try to accomplish all I could, and that they respect that. So as women, we have to make our choices and then respect our choice and what that's going to mean to us, and be willing to respect others if they're not making the same choice you do. But I don't think there's anything we can't do. If we set our mind on it, we focus on it, we get the education, we network, we surround ourselves with the right people, we can do anything.
And who was your mentor that encouraged you, and what motivated you?
My mentor, believe it or not, was that bank president in Paducah, and bless his heart, I know, he felt out of his realm too, trying to mentor a young woman. He did send me to Nashville, Tennessee to meet with a female commercial loan officer down there. And he actually paid for me to stay down there like 4 days and just shadow her and to try to get a feel for how she conducted herself in meetings. Because I didn't want to be argumentative. But I also didn't want to be a doormat. I didn't want to let them walk on me. One of the guys in our loan committee one time asked me if I was going to get his coffee. So it was like, how do you respond back to that without appearing to be, angry, bitter woman? And so learning the way to deal with those things, she was a big help to me. My motivation, like a big part was taking care of my kids. And, I didn't get discounts at the grocery by being a single mom. I had to pay what people were paying that had, 2-income families. So the motivation was just to get ahead and to do the best I could by them and by myself. And at some point then it was an addiction, because it was like, if I did this, what else could I do? How much further could I push this? And I guess that was my motivation, to see how far I could go.
Excellent. And what advice would you have for a single mom to advance their career?
Oh, bless your heart. Surround yourself with, build your village. Who are the people that you can have help you? One part of the story I didn't share. I did leave the bank in Paducah one time before I came to Louisville, because I went to Nashville, the bank that the lady that was mentoring me, and because they offered me some more money and I saw the opportunity. What I didn't figure into that equation at that time, I had a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I had no family in Nashville. And I had to take a hard look and realize how much I did depend upon my grandmother to help me out back in Paducah. She was the one that would take care of the kids when they were sick. She was the one that'd come take care of me when I was sick. And not having that support system in place is crippling. So be sure you have a support system, whether it's friends, family, whatever it is, that have your support system. And it may be just those ladies that you can commiserate with and, swap out babysitting with, help each other on the days you need help. That's going to be very important to any single working mom.
Awesome. Those are all the questions that I see here that were sent over to me. I did stop your recording, Jania, just so I can share the flyers that we have of our upcoming webinars. So next week, today we wrapped up DGS 101, How to Do Business with California State. This is a 4-part series. Next week we have DGS 102. So this one is I'm certified now what. So we do encourage you to attend that one. On Tuesday, May 10th, we have Build and Leverage Credit to Get Financing and Grow Your Business. And this one is with our partner NAV, presented by Jerry Dittweiler. And on May 17th, we have Social Media 101. So very good, exciting webinars coming up this month. This one is with our presenter, Riva Lutsonsky. And in partnership with Google, we have Make Your Website Work For You. That's going to be coming up later this month on May 27th. And all of these flyers will be sent over to you along with the wonderful presentation today that Jania gave us. So and the link to the recording. So with that, I don't see any other questions in the chat. Any closing comments from anyone?
Thank you, Jania. As always, we're all riveted to your comments and the value you give to others out there on your pathway to success and your partnership with SCORE. We want to thank you on behalf of the SCORE family so much for being here today. So in conclusion, we want to thank everybody for attending. And then we're going to have a wrap up here with the speaker and some of our volunteers. Thank you everybody for attending today, and we'll see you at the next event.
Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.